The Galactic Archive Station floated silently in orbit around Velner Prime, a massive structure of gleaming metal and transparent viewing ports. Inside its vast halls, millions of records from thousands of worlds were stored and cataloged. The station served as a neutral ground where any species could come to research history, study treaties, or learn about other civilizations. It was a place of quiet work and scholarly pursuit. Hannah Park worked on the third level in the military history section. She had been there for 12 years, arriving shortly after the Human-Kreth War ended. Every morning, she arrived exactly on time, wore simple gray or blue clothes, and kept her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her desk was always organized. She spoke softly to visitors and helped them find whatever records they needed. To her coworkers, she was the most unremarkable human they had ever met. "Hannah, could you help this researcher?" Kira called from the front desk. Kira was a sultan, a bird-like species with iridescent blue feathers and quick, precise movements. She had worked with Hannah for 8 years and considered her a friend. Though Hannah rarely spoke about anything personal. Hannah looked up from her catalog terminal and nodded. She walked to the front desk, where a young Kreth male stood waiting. The Kreth were tall and powerfully built, with rough gray skin and proud, angular features. This one wore diplomatic robes marked with the symbol of the Kreth Reconciliation Council. He looked impatient. "I am Vakrim," he said, his voice carrying the natural authority of his warrior species. "I need access to human military records from the war. I am researching for a peace monument." "Of course," Hannah said quietly. "Please follow me. I will show you to the research terminals." She led him through the rows of data storage units to a private research booth. Her movements were efficient and steady. She did not make small talk. Volkrim watched her with barely concealed disdain. Humans had defeated his people 15 years ago, but many Kreth still struggled to accept it. They had been warriors for thousands of years, proud and honorable in battle. The humans had won through tactics the Kreth considered cowardly. "Do you know anything about the war?" Vakrim asked as Hannah set up his terminal access. "Did you lose anyone?" "Many humans did their part," Hannah replied without looking at him. "The records you need are in files A through G. If you need assistance, press the call button." She turned to leave, but Vakrim spoke again. "Your people won by hiding and sneaking, attacking from shadows. That is not honor." Hannah stopped. For just a moment, her shoulders tensed. Then she continued walking. "The records will explain what happened. Good luck with your research." Kira noticed Hannah's hands were shaking slightly when she returned to the main desk. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," Hannah said. She went back to her cataloging work, her fingers moving automatically across the keyboard. She had learned long ago how to keep her face neutral, how to breathe through the memories that sometimes surfaced. The trick was to focus on the present, the feel of the keys, the soft hum of the climate control, the smell of recycled air and old data crystals. Days passed. Vakrim came to the archive every morning and stayed until evening. He requested hundreds of files, reading battle reports and strategic analyses. Hannah helped him locate records without comment, even when he made more remarks about human cowardice. She simply did her job. One afternoon, Vakrim was searching through a classified military database that required special diplomatic clearance. He had permissions to view general troop movements and battle outcomes, but some files were restricted. As he navigated through the system, he accidentally triggered a security protocol. A file flashed on his screen for 3 seconds before the system locked him out. In those 3 seconds, Volkrim saw a name: Lieutenant Commander H. Park. The file showed partial service records, marked with red classification seals. He glimpsed a list of operations and a number that made no sense. It said 147 confirmed hostile eliminations. The file disappeared, replaced by an access-denied message. Vakram sat back, his mind racing. The Ghost Corps. He had heard stories about them, whispered among Kreth veterans who refused to speak openly about how they had been defeated. The Ghost Corps had been human special operations units that infiltrated Kreth territory, sabotaged equipment, and killed key targets. They had been invisible, striking without warning and vanishing before defenses could respond. Every Kreth warrior hated them. Every Kreth warrior feared them. And there had been one ghost in particular, the ghost of Kreth's station, the one who had killed Admiral Kravesh in his own quarters on a fortress that was supposed to be impenetrable. The one who had ended the war. Could H. Park be that ghost? But the records said Lieutenant Commander. There were probably thousands of humans with the last name Park. It was just a coincidence. Except, Vakram kept noticing small things about Hana over the following days. The way she moved through the archive with perfect awareness of everyone around her. The way she always positioned herself with her back to solid walls. The way her eyes tracked movement with an intensity that seemed wrong for a librarian. Once, a maintenance worker dropped a heavy container, and the loud bang echoed through the hall. Everyone jumped, except Hannah. She dropped into a half-crouch, her hand moving toward her hip where nothing was there. Then she caught herself and slowly straightened, looking around to see if anyone had noticed. Vakram had noticed that he approached Kira when Hannah was away from the desk. "Your co-worker, Hannah. How long has she worked here?" 12 years, Kira said. "Why do you ask? What did she do before this?" Kira tilted her head, her feathers ruffling slightly. "She said she worked in logistics during the war." "Why? Logistics," Vakram repeated. It was a common cover story. "Does she ever talk about her service?" "Never. And I have learned not to ask. Hannah is private. She is a good person and a good worker. That is enough." Kira looked at him with her sharp black eyes. "Leave her past alone, Vakram. The war is over." But Vakram could not leave it alone. That night, he used his diplomatic access codes to try to open the H. Park file again. The system denied him 3 times, then flagged his attempts and sent a warning. Accessing classified military records without proper authorization was illegal, even for diplomats. Vakram stared at his terminal in his quarters, thinking about the quiet librarian who never spoke about her past. He thought about the ghost of Kreth's station, the legendary human operative who had single-handedly changed the course of the war. He thought about the number he had seen. 147 confirmed eliminations. Tomorrow, he would watch Hannah more carefully. Tomorrow, he would find the truth dot in her own small quarters. Hannah sat on her bed and stared at the wall. She had seen Vakram talking to Kira. She knew the signs. Someone was asking questions. Someone was getting curious. She pressed her palms against her knees to stop them from shaking. She had been so careful for so many years. She had built a quiet life. She had left that other person behind, but the past never stayed buried forever. Vakram spent 3 more days watching Hannah without appearing obvious. He noticed everything now. The way she entered a room by scanning it completely before taking a step inside. The way she never sat with her back exposed. The way her fingers sometimes tapped against her leg in a specific rhythm when she was thinking, as if counting something silently. He researched the Ghost Corps more thoroughly, using his diplomatic access to read historical analyses that were available to the public. The Ghost Corps had been humanity's answer to the Kreth's superior numbers and firepower. Instead of fighting fleet battles they would lose, humans had sent small teams deep into enemy territory. These teams disrupted supply lines, eliminated key leaders, and created fear among Kreth, commanders who never knew when death might come from the shadows. The Kreth military had called it dishonorable. But it had worked. Valkrum found himself in the archive's cafeteria during lunch break, sitting with several other researchers. Hana was there too, 3 tables away, eating a simple meal and reading something on her personal datapad. She always ate alone. "The ghost cores?" Valkrum said loud enough for others to hear. "I have been reading about them. They were remarkable operators." An older Mantaran researcher named Vex, who had been a war correspondent, suddenly went very still. The Mantaran were insect-like beings with compound eyes and 4 arms. Vex had covered the war from both sides and had written extensively about it afterward. "Why do you ask about them?" Vex said, his voice careful. "For my monument research. I want to understand how the war was won." Vex stood up quickly, gathering his meal. "Some history is better left in the archives, young diplomat. I suggest you focus on the peace that followed, not the ghosts that made it possible." He left the cafeteria without another word. Valkrum noticed that Hana had also stood up and was leaving. She had been close enough to hear their conversation. He followed her at a distance, watching as she returned to the military history section. She moved through the aisles to the very back, where old physical books were stored as backup to the digital systems. She stood there for a long moment, one hand resting against a shelf, her head bowed. That evening, Valkrum made a decision. He would use his full diplomatic authority to access the H-Park file, regardless of the consequences. He submitted a formal request through the Kreth Reconciliation Council, claiming it was essential for his peace monument project to understand specific human military operations. The request was denied within an hour. The response was clear. Those records were sealed by Joint Human-Kreth Treaty and would remain classified for another 30 years. Valkrum was not discouraged. He contacted a friend who worked in Kreth military intelligence, someone who owed him a favor. "I need information about a human operative. Lieutenant Commander H. Park, Ghost Corps." There was a long silence on the communication channel. "Valkrum, forget about this. Trust me, I cannot. Tell me what you know." Another silence. Then, "The ghost of Kreth's station. That is who you are asking about. The one who killed Krabish. The one who infiltrated the throne world itself. The one who delivered the message that ended the war." His friend's voice was tight with old anger and grudging respect. Her name was Hannah Park. She was 23 years old when she killed an admiral who had won 30 battles. She was 27 when she walked into the Emperor's palace and made him choose between peace and total destruction. Valkrum felt cold. Where is she now? Dead, probably. Or living under a false identity somewhere. Many human special operators did that after the war. They were too damaged, too dangerous to return to normal society. The human government pensioned them off and gave them new lives. His friend paused. "Why are you asking about this?" "No reason." "Thank you." Valkrum ended the call. He sat in his quarters, thinking about the quiet librarian who filed records and helped researchers with infinite patience. She was not dead. She was not living under a false identity. She was living under her real name, hidden in plain sight, doing the most peaceful work imaginable. The next morning, Valkrum waited until the archive was nearly empty. Late afternoon was the quietest time, when most researchers had left and only the staff remained to finish cataloging work. He found Hana in the back section, organizing physical files that had just been digitized. "You are her," he said quietly. Hana did not turn around. Her hands continued moving, placing files in precise order. "I do not know what you mean." "Lieutenant Commander Hana Park, Ghost Corps, the ghost of Kreth's station." Her hands stopped moving. She stood perfectly still for 3 heartbeats. Then she turned to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were different now. They were the eyes of someone who had seen too much and survived anyway. "If you know that," she said quietly, Then you know why it is classified. That person does not exist anymore. She disappeared 15 years ago when the war ended. I am an archivist. Nothing more. You killed Admiral Kravish. You destroyed 3 capital ships. You. Vakram's voice faltered. The records say 147 confirmed eliminations. You killed 147 of my people. I was a soldier, Hannah said. Her voice was steady, but there was something fragile underneath. My people were being exterminated. The Kreth were burning colonies, killing civilians, pushing humanity to extinction. I did what I had to do to stop that. I did not enjoy it. I did not want to do it. But I was good at it, so they kept sending me. You murdered our admiral in his sleep. He was not asleep. He heard me coming. He fought. He lost. Hannah looked at Vakram directly. Admiral Kravish ordered the destruction of New Seattle Colony. 20,000 human civilians burned alive. He called it necessary intimidation. So yes, I killed him. And I would do it again if it meant saving 20,000 innocent lives. Vakram felt something crack inside his certainty. The Kreth High Command had always maintained that the colony destructions were justified military targets. But many Kreth soldiers, including his own uncle, had spoken quietly about the horror they had witnessed, about orders they regretted following. Why are you here? Vakram asked. Why work in an archive? Why not ... I do not know. Why not stay in the military? You were a hero to your people. I was a killer, Hannah corrected. A necessary killer, maybe, but still a killer. When the war ended, I wanted to preserve life, not take it. I wanted to catalog history, not make it. I wanted to be something other than a weapon. She paused. And I was not a hero. I was a ghost. Ghosts should stay forgotten. But you are not forgotten. Every Kreth warrior knows the stories. You are legendary. I am a librarian, Hannah said firmly. That is all I want to be? So I am asking you, Vakram, to let this go. Let the past stay in the past. Let me do my work in peace. Vakram looked at this small, quiet woman who had single-handedly terrified an empire. He thought about his monument project, about understanding the cost of war and the value of peace. He thought about honor and what it truly meant. I will not tell anyone, he finally said. Your secret is safe. Hannah's shoulders dropped slightly with relief. Thank you. But neither of them knew that Vakram's investigation had already been noticed. His communication with Kreth intelligence had been monitored by a radical group called the Talon Syndicate. Kreth extremists who believed the war should have continued until humanity was destroyed, and they had just learned exactly where to find the Ghost of Kreth's Station. 2 days after Vakram's confrontation with Hannah, everything changed. He arrived at the archive to find news broadcasts playing on every public screen in the station. His blood went cold as he recognized the images and information being displayed. Someone had leaked Hannah's complete military record to the galactic media. Her face appeared on screens across the station, side by side with her old military identification photo. The young lieutenant commander in the photo looked harder, thinner, with eyes that stared through the camera rather than at it. But it was unmistakably the same person as the quiet librarian. The news presenter, a Vorlon with blue-scaled skin, spoke in urgent tones. The revelation has shocked the diplomatic community. Hannah Park, who has worked at the Galactic Archive for 12 years, is actually the ghost of Kreth's Station, the human operative responsible for some of the most controversial operations of the human Kreth War. Kreth advocacy groups are calling for her immediate arrest and trial for war crimes. Vakram ran through the station corridors to the archive. A crowd had already gathered outside, both protesters and supporters. Some held signs demanding justice. Others held signs praising her as a hero. Security personnel were trying to maintain order as the crowd grew larger. Inside, the archive was in chaos. Researchers were arguing, staff members were gathering in worried groups, and Kyra stood at the main desk looking terrified. When she saw Vakram, she rushed to him. "Did you do this?" she demanded, her feathers standing on end with agitation. "Did you expose her?" "No. I promised I would not tell anyone." "Where is she?" "Her office. She has not come out since the news broke. The station administrator is demanding she answer questions, but security is holding everyone back." Kira's voice dropped. "Vakram, she saved my life once. 3 years ago, there was a malfunction in the atmospheric processing system. Everyone was panicking, but Hana stayed calm. She sealed the section, rerouted the backups, and got everyone to safety before the room decompressed. She did not hesitate. She just acted. I never understood how she knew exactly what to do until now." Vakram pushed through the crowd of staff to reach Hannah's office. 2 security officers stood outside the door. "No one is allowed in," one said. "I am a Kreth diplomat. I need to speak with her." The officers looked at each other uncertainly. Before they could respond, the door opened. Hannah stood there, looking exactly as she always did. Simple clothes, hair pulled back, calm expression. But her eyes had that distant, measured quality that Vakram now recognized as the gaze of someone calculating angles and exits. "Let him in," she said quietly. Vakram entered her small office. The space was neat and orderly, with carefully organized files and a single photograph on her desk. The photo showed a much younger Hana with 2 older people, probably her parents. All 3 were smiling. It looked like it had been taken before the war. "I did not tell anyone," Vakram said immediately. "You must believe me." "I know you did not. This leak came from Kreth intelligence networks. Someone was monitoring your communications when you asked about me." Hana sat down at her desk, her movements controlled and precise. "The Talon Syndicate. They have been looking for an excuse to destabilize the peace treaty. Exposing me serves their purpose perfectly. What will you do? Will you run? Hide?" "No." Hana looked at him directly. "I did what I did during the war. I will not hide from it. I will not apologize for surviving or for protecting my people. If there are legitimate questions about my service, I will answer them. But they are calling you a war criminal. They want you arrested. Then let them try." Something flickered across Hana's face, something hard and cold that reminded Vakram exactly who she had been. "I followed every rule of engagement. I never killed civilians. I never tortured prisoners. I never violated the laws of war. Every target I eliminated was a legitimate military objective. The Kreth High Command knows this. That is why the records were sealed by joint treaty, not by human law alone." A notification chimed on Hana's terminal. She read it, and for the first time, Vakram saw genuine fear cross her face. "What is it?" "A message from Kreth Homeworld Security. They have detected unauthorized travel by Talon Syndicate members. 6 known extremists left Kreth space 4 days ago. Their trajectory suggests they are heading here." "Here? To this station?" "To me." Hana stood up, her hands flat on her desk. "The Syndicate does not want a trial. They want me dead. They want to make me a martyr and blame it on the Kreth government, which will break the peace treaty and restart the war. We need to alert station security. Get you to safety. Station security cannot stop trained Kreth warriors. And there is no safe place for me if they are determined to find me." Hana took a slow breath. "I need to think. I need to plan." Over the next 2 days, the situation spiraled. The galactic media could not stop talking about the ghost of Krethis Station. Human networks praised her as a hero who had saved humanity from extinction. Kreth networks were divided, with some calling for justice and others acknowledging that she had been a soldier following orders. Other species watched with concern, worried that the fragile peace between humanity and the Kreth Empire would collapse. Hana released a single, public statement through the Archives Communication Office. She stood in front of cameras and spoke in her quiet, steady voice. I was Lieutenant Commander Hana Park of the Ghost Corps. I served my people during a war of survival. I followed all laws and protocols. I took no pleasure in my actions. I have no regrets about protecting humanity. I will answer any legitimate questions about my service. The statement was brief and direct. It satisfied no one and impressed everyone. Vakram completed his monument design during those 2 days. He had finally understood what needed to be commemorated. Not victory or defeat, but the cost that all beings paid during war. The monument would show figures from both sides, human and Kreth, reaching toward each other across a gap filled with names. The names of all who had died. He showed the design to Hana in her office late one evening when the archive was quiet. She studied it for a long time, then nodded. This is good. This is honest. I am sorry, Vakram said. Sorry that investigating you led to this exposure. You did what you thought was right. You were trying to understand. That is honorable. Hana managed a small smile. And maybe it is better this way. I have been hiding for 15 years. Maybe it is time to stop. That night, station sensors detected a small ship approaching on a non-standard trajectory. Security identified it as a transport vessel registered to a Kreth commercial fleet. But when they hailed it, there was no response. The ship docked at a maintenance bay, far from the main concourse. 6 figures in dark combat suits emerged, moving with the practiced efficiency of military operators. They carried weapons that were illegal on diplomatic stations. They had hardened their armor against standard security measures. The Talon Syndicate had arrived by the time station security realized what was happening. The intruders had already breached the main archive section. They moved through the corridors systematically, forcing staff and researchers into the central reading room as hostages. They sealed the entrances and set up defensive positions. Their leader, a scarred veteran named Corvin, activated the station's communication system. His voice echoed through every speaker. We are here for the war criminal Hana Park. Surrender yourself, and the hostages will not be harmed. Resist, and they will die. You have 1 hour. In her office, Hana heard the announcement. She looked at the photograph on her desk one more time, touching her parents' faces gently. Then she opened a drawer and pulled out something she had kept hidden for 15 years. It was a small tool, no bigger than her palm, with multiple attachments. A maintenance multi-tool, completely legal and unremarkable. But in the right hands, it could be much more. Hana closed her eyes and took 3 slow breaths. When she opened them again, the quiet librarian was gone. The ghost of Krethis Station looked back at her from her own reflection. One more time, she whispered to herself. To save them. One more time. The archive's lighting system flickered as Hana moved through the maintenance corridors. She had spent 12 years learning every duct, every access panel, every forgotten pathway in this station. She knew where the security cameras were positioned. She knew which corridors had blind spots. She knew how sound carried through the ventilation systems. She was hunting. The Talon Syndicate had 43 hostages in the central reading room. Kira was among them, along with Vakram and dozens of researchers from various species. The 6 intruders had spread out in defensive positions, weapons trained on the entrances. They were professionals, trained in Kreth military tactics. confident in their superior strength and firepower, but they had made one critical mistake. They had assumed Hana would surrender or hide. They had not considered that she might attack. Hana climbed through the air circulation system, moving silently despite the narrow space. Her multi-tool had been disassembled into its components. The cutting blade, the power driver, the electromagnetic clamp. In her hands, they were weapons. She emerged in a storage room adjacent to the main reading area. Through the ventilation grate, she could see one of the intruders standing guard near the eastern entrance. He was positioned perfectly, with clear sightlines and good cover. But his back was to the storage room wall, and there was a maintenance access panel directly behind his position. Hana removed the panel with careful precision, making no sound. The opening was barely wide enough for her to fit through. She slipped into the gap behind the wall, moving sideways through the structural space until she was directly behind the guard. Through the thin inner panel, she could hear his breathing. Steady, calm, confident, she waited. Patience was a weapon. Inside the reading room, Corvin paced among the hostages. His scarred face was twisted with anger and purpose. 15 years, he said loudly. 15 years since the coward humans defeated us through trickery and dishonor. But we have not forgotten. We will never forget. Vakram sat with his hands bound, watching Corvin carefully. The other hostages were terrified, some crying, others sitting in shocked silence. Kira was trying to comfort a young human researcher who was shaking with fear. She will not come, Vakram said, trying to keep his voice steady. She knows this is a trap. She will contact authorities and have them handle this properly. Corvin laughed. The ghost of Kretha Station ran away? No, she will come. She cannot help herself. She thinks she is a protector. She thinks she must save you. He checked his weapon. And when she does, we will kill her and all of you. The Kreth government will be blamed. The peace will end. The war will begin again, and this time we will not lose. Outside the reading room, Hannah struck. The guard never heard her coming. One moment he was standing alert, the next moment a hand clamped over his mouth and nose from behind, cutting off his air and his cry of warning. The electromagnetic clamp in Hannah's other hand discharged directly against the side of his head, disrupting his nervous system. He dropped unconscious before his brain could process what was happening. Hannah caught his weapon before it clattered to the floor. She dragged his body back through the maintenance access and bound him with his own equipment straps. 1 down, 5 to go. She moved through the walls like a ghost, exactly as she had moved through Kreth installations during the war. The other intruders did not notice their guard was missing for several minutes. When they did, they immediately went on high alert. Spread out, Corvin ordered through their communication system. She is here. Find her. Kill her. 2 intruders moved toward the eastern entrance, weapons raised, scanning for threats. They moved well, covering each other, checking corners. But they were looking for an enemy in front of them. They did not think to look up. Hana had climbed into the overhead structural supports, a maze of beams and conduits that crisscrossed the archive's high ceiling. She waited above the doorway, perfectly still, as the 2 intruders passed beneath her. When they were 3 steps past her position, she dropped. She landed on the rear intruder's shoulders, using her momentum and his surprise to drive him face first into the floor. Before the second intruder could turn, Hana had swept his legs out from under him with a precise kick to the back of his knee. Both warriors were strong, much stronger than her, but strength meant nothing if you could not bring it to bear. The first intruder she had dropped was already recovering, his training overriding the shock. He grabbed for her, his massive hands capable of crushing bone. Hannah did not try to fight his strength. Instead, she used the power driver from her multi-tool like a striking weapon, jabbing it into the nerve cluster at his elbow. His arm went numb, and she rolled away from his grasp. The second intruder was back on his feet, bringing his weapon up. Hana threw the electromagnetic clamp like a disc, and it struck his weapon's power cell. The resulting feedback surge made him drop the weapon with a curse. She closed the distance in 2 steps, using a joint lock to force him down while simultaneously striking a pressure point that made his entire body go limp. The fight had taken 11 seconds. Both intruders were down. Hana bound them quickly and took their weapons, though she did not intend to use them. Lethal force was a last resort. These were people, not monsters. They were wrong, but they were not evil. She would stop them without killing them if possible. 3 down. 3 to go. Inside the reading room, Corvin heard the brief sounds of fighting through his communication system before 2 of his team went silent. His eyes widened with shock and then narrowed with rage. She is better than the report said. Tovin, Rikil, hold the hostages. Mara with me. We hunt. Corvin and the female warrior named Mara moved out of the reading room, leaving 2 guards with the hostages. They moved more cautiously now, aware that they were facing a true threat. Corvin had fought in the war. He had lost comrades to human special operations, but he had never faced a Ghost Corps operative directly. Hana watched them from the shadows of a study alcove. She could see their tactical formation, their weapon discipline, their situational awareness. They were good, very good. If this had been an open fight, they would win through superior strength and firepower. But this was not an open fight. This was her environment, her rules, her game. She moved through the archive like water, always flowing away from direct confrontation, always appearing where she should not be. She triggered small distractions. A falling book here, a door closing there. Every sound made the 2 warriors turn, tense, waste energy on false threats. Then she struck. Mara passed too close to a shelf of physical documents. Hana had rigged a simple trap using file boxes and gravity. The boxes toppled, creating noise and visual clutter. Mara spun toward the sound, and in that moment of distraction, Hana came from behind, using a pressure point technique that made Mara's legs buckle. Corvin turned and fired, but Hana was already gone, melting back into the shadows. Mara tried to rise, but Hana had struck precisely. Her muscles would not respond correctly for several minutes. By the time Corvin reached his comrade, Hana had vanished again. Coward! Corvin roared. Face me with honor. From the darkness, Hana's voice came quiet and steady. Honor does not protect hostages. Surrender now, and no one else needs to be hurt. I would rather die than surrender to you. Then you will die, Hana said simply. But I would prefer you lived. Corvin charged toward the sound of her voice, but she was no longer there. He found himself in the central rotunda of the archive, a large circular space with reading terminals arranged around a holographic display of historical records. The space was too open, too exposed. He had been drawn into a trap. Hana appeared from 3 different directions simultaneously. Not really, of course. She had used reflective surfaces and holographic displays to create multiple false images. But Corvin's combat instincts made him turn toward all 3 threats at once, and in that moment of confusion, Hana was behind him. She had no weapon except her knowledge and skill. She struck precisely, targeting nerve clusters and pressure points that would disable without causing permanent harm. Corvin was stronger, but she was faster and infinitely more experienced in this type of combat. The fight lasted 30 seconds. When it ended, Corvin was on his knees, his weapon on the floor, his body refusing to respond to his commands. Stay down, Hana said quietly. You fought well. There is no shame in defeat. 4 down. 2 to go. But these last two were with the hostages. The two remaining guards in the reading room had heard everything through their communication system. They heard their team being eliminated one by one. They heard Corvin's final fight and defeat. Now they stood among the hostages, weapons raised, fear and desperation making them more dangerous than ever. "Stay back," Tovin shouted toward the entrance. He was younger than the others, less experienced, and his hands shook slightly. "We have hostages. We will kill them." Rikill, the other guard, was older and calmer. He pulled Kira to her feet and held her in front of him as a shield, his weapon pressed against her head. "Show yourself, Ghost, or I will start executing these people one by one." Hannah's voice came from the entrance, calm and measured. "You know, I cannot let you hurt them. You also know you cannot escape. Station security is sealing off this entire sector. Surrender now, and you will face justice, not death." "Justice?" Rikill laughed bitterly. "There is no justice for Kreth warriors anymore. We lost the war because of creatures like you. We lost our honor because humans would not fight with honor. The war ended 15 years ago," Hannah said. "More killing will not change that. Let them go. Your fight is with me, not them." She stepped into the doorway, her hands raised and empty. Every hostage could see her now, the quiet librarian who had helped them with research and cataloging. But they could also see something else, the way she held herself, the way she moved with absolute certainty and control, the way her eyes assessed every angle, every option, every possibility. This was the ghost of Kreth's station. This was the operative who had terrified an empire. "Release them," Hannah said. "I will come with you. You can do whatever you want with me. Just let them go." Tovin looked uncertain. Rikill tightened his grip on Kira. "You think we are fools? The moment we release them, you will attack. Then do not release them all. Keep one hostage. Keep the diplomat Vakram. His government will negotiate for him. Let the others go." Vakram started to protest, but Hannah's slight shake of her head silenced him. She had a plan. She always had a plan, Rikill considered. "Very well, but you will bind your own hands. You will kneel. Any movement, and we kill both the hostages and you." Hannah nodded. She took a cable tie from her pocket, the kind used to organize archive materials. She bound her own wrists in front of her and knelt on the floor. She looked completely defenseless. Rikill gestured to Tovin. "Let the others go. Keep the Kreth diplomat." The hostages were released in small groups, herded out of the reading room by Tovin, while Rikill kept his weapon trained on Hannah. Kira looked back as she was pushed toward the exit, her eyes wide with fear for her friend. Hannah gave her a tiny nod. "Trust me, Dot," when only Vakram remained. Tovin grabbed him and pulled him to the center of the room. Rikill finally released Kira, shoving her toward the exit. "Go. Tell station security that if they attempt to breach this room, everyone dies." Kira ran, and the door sealed behind her. Now it was just Hannah, Vakram, and the two guards. "You should have stayed hidden," Rikill said to Hannah. "You should have lived out your quiet life. But you could not resist. You had to be a hero one more time." "I am not a hero," Hannah said quietly. "I am just someone who will not let innocent people die when I can prevent it." Noble words from a murderer. "I killed soldiers in wartime. You are threatening to murder a diplomat during peace. We are not the same." Rikill's face twisted with rage. He raised his weapon, pointing it at Hannah's head. "You killed my brother. He was aboard the ship you sabotaged at Kreth Station. He burned to death when the reactor overloaded." Hannah met his eyes. "I am sorry for your loss. War takes everyone's family. But your brother was a soldier on a military vessel that had just destroyed a human colony. I did what I had to do to stop more colonies from being destroyed. If I could go back and save him without sacrificing human lives, I would. But I cannot. Sorry is not enough. No, Hannah agreed. It never is. Vakram had been watching carefully, and he finally understood what Hannah was doing. She was not helpless. She had deliberately put herself in this position. She was waiting for the exact right moment. He just needed to give her an opening. Rekill, Vakram said suddenly. Look at me. I am Kreth, like you. I fought in the war, too. I lost family, too. But killing her will not bring them back. It will only restart the war and kill millions more. Is that what you want? Is that what your brother would want? My brother wanted victory. He wanted honor. Your brother wanted to go home, Vakram said quietly. They all did. Kreth, human, everyone. They wanted the war to end. It ended. We have peace. Fragile peace? Yes, but peace. Do not destroy it for revenge. Rekill's weapon wavered. For just a moment, his focus shifted from Hannah to Vakram. That moment was enough. Hannah moved. The cable tie binding her wrists snapped. She had positioned it deliberately over a weak point. She rolled forward inside Rekill's weapon arc and struck his wrist with a precise blow that made his hand spasm open. The weapon clattered to the floor. Tovin turned his weapon toward her, but Vakram was already moving. He threw himself at the younger warrior, not with skill, but with desperate courage. Tovin stumbled, his shot going wide. Hannah was there in an instant, disarming him with a technique so fast the eye could barely follow. Both warriors were on the ground, disarmed and disabled, before they could fully process what had happened. Hannah stood over them, breathing hard but controlled. Stay down, she said. It is over. Rekill looked up at her with hatred and grudging respect. You could have killed us. Why did you not? Because the war is over, Hannah said simply. And because I am tired of killing. Station security burst through the door moments later, weapons ready, finding the situation already resolved. They secured the two intruders and checked on Vakram, who was shaken but unhurt. The lead security officer looked at Hannah with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. The other 4 intruders are secured in various locations throughout the archive, Hannah said, giving precise locations. None of them are seriously injured. They will need medical attention for minor trauma and nervous system disruption, but they will recover fully. You took down 6 armed Kreth warriors by yourself? I did what was necessary to protect the hostages. Hannah looked around the reading room, at the scattered research materials and overturned chairs. I apologize for the disruption to archive operations. I will help clean up. The security officer stared at her. Ma'am, you just saved 43 people from armed terrorists. I do not think anyone is worried about cleaning up. Over the following days, the galactic response to the hostage situation was overwhelming. The fact that Hannah had resolved the crisis without killing anyone, despite having every justification to use lethal force, changed the narrative. Even many Kreth who had called for her arrest began to reconsider. The Kreth government issued an official statement. They condemned the Talon Syndicate, acknowledged Hannah's actions as those of a soldier during wartime, and declared that she would not face any charges. They went further, awarding her a Medal of Honor for her role in ending the war, and her restraint in protecting hostages. Hannah accepted the medal in a brief ceremony, then quietly returned to work at the archive. Vakram completed his monument. The dedication ceremony was held on Velner Prime, with representatives from both human and Kreth governments present. The monument was simple but powerful. 2 figures, human and Kreth, reaching across a gap filled with the names of all who had died in the war. At the base was a single inscription: War makes ghosts of us all. Peace gives us the chance to be human again. Hannah attended the ceremony, but stood at the back of the crowd. When it was over, Vokrim found her there. "Thank you," he said, "for saving my life, for showing me what true honor means." "You showed courage when it mattered," Hannah replied. "You could have stayed down. You chose to act. I learned from the best." Vokrim paused. "Will you continue working at the archive?" "Where else would I go? This is my home now. These are my people." She gestured at the diverse crowd of researchers and diplomats. All of them. Human Kreth, Selton, everyone. "This is what I've fought for. A place where we could all work together." Months later, life at the archive had returned to its normal rhythm. Hannah filed records, helped researchers, and occasionally spoke at veteran support meetings. She had started talking about her experiences, slowly and carefully, with others who had served and struggled to find peace afterward. One afternoon, a young human researcher approached her desk. The researcher wore a memorial bracelet with a name engraved on it, a common way to honor fallen family members. "Excuse me, I need help finding military records from the war." Hannah looked at the bracelet, at the name. "I am sorry for your loss. Let me help you find what you need." As she pulled up the records, the researcher studied her face. "You are her, are not you? The ghost?" Hannah paused, then nodded. "I served during the war, yes. My brother talked about the Ghost Corps before he died. He said you gave humanity hope when there was none. He said you proved that humans could fight back." The researcher's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Thank you for what you did. Your brother was brave to serve," Hannah said gently. "I am sorry he did not make it home." They worked together in quiet companionship, searching through records, finding information about battles and operations. When they finished, the researcher hesitated. "If you ever want to talk about it, about the war, I would like to listen." "I think a lot of us would." Hannah considered this. For 15 years, she had been silent. For 15 years, she had hidden. But maybe it was time to stop hiding. Maybe sharing her story, her pain, her truth, could help others heal. "Come back next week," Hannah said. "I will tell you what I remember. Not the tactical reports. The real things. What it was like. What it cost. What we saved." The researcher smiled. "I will be here." After they left, Hannah sat at her desk and looked around the archive. The quiet halls filled with history. The researchers from a dozen species working together. The peace that had seemed impossible during the darkest days of the war. She had been a weapon once. Now she was a librarian, a friend, a veteran trying to heal. She was still the ghost of Krethis Station in the history books. But here, now, in this moment, she was simply Hannah Park, and that was enough.